Hello, I'm Burt Lancaster. This old cruiser, the Aurora, is Russia's most historic warship. In 1917, during the Bolshevik Revolution, it was a shot from this ship that signaled the opening of the final assault on the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg, now Leningrad. In 1941, the Aurora had been retired, but even the guns of this distinguished old ship were fired against the Nazis in defense of Leningrad. The Russians fought Hitler at sea, in the Baltic, in the Gulf of Finland, in the Black Sea, the Arctic, and even on inland lakes and rivers. Soviet Marines attacked so savagely, they were nicknamed the Black Death by the Nazis. Russia's Baltic fleet rescued Soviet forces from Tallinn under a rain of Nazi bombs and a barrage of torpedo fire. The Soviet survivors returned to the great naval base of Kronstadt after an evacuation that rivaled Dunkirk. When their ships were sunk, Russian sailors fought on the land. They battled the Germans in Odessa, in Novorossiysk, in Murmansk, and they fought a 250-day defense of the fortress at Sevastopol. Each battle, a vivid chapter in the unknown war. Our story, the Battle of the Seas.
A sort of a shrine. The light cruiser Aurora, laid down in 1900 in the Baltic yards. Displacement, 6,731 tons. Complements, 578. Engines, 4 steam turbines. Principal armament, 8 152mm guns, 24 75mm. Aurora's guns opened the Bolshevik Revolution. It was the most far-reaching salvo ever fired. The Baltic Sea. Here, Peter the Great launched Russia's first navy. Here, in 1917, Lenin began the revolution that founded the Soviet state. And here, in the early summer of 1941, the last moments of peace were spent. The Baltic was the ancient trade route between Russia and the West. Its ports, Riga, Tallinn, and Leningrad herself, were prime targets for the Germans. Before the German attack began on June 22, 1941, the Soviet Baltic Fleet moved to number 2 alert. Live ammunition was broken out. Out of sight of the Soviet patrols, the Nazis were stealing towards the Baltic. Days before there was any declaration of war, the German Navy began to lay mines in the Gulf of Finland, in the approaches to the Baltic Fleet's bases. On the morning of the German attack, the Luftwaffe arrived. Stuka dive bombers and ground attack aircraft harried coastal installations all along the Baltic shore and into the Gulf of Finland. Anything that could not fight back was destroyed. Baltic Fleet was on alert, unlike some other Soviet forces. The state of readiness had earlier been ordered by Admiral Nikolai Kuznetsov, People's Commissar of the Navy. At 3:15 that morning, his telephone woke him. The Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol, as well as his Baltic Fleet, was under assault. He made a crisp signal: resist with force of arms any attempted attack by the enemy. Plan Barbarossa intended to take the Soviet naval bases in the Baltic by land. The German Army Group North battered its way along the coast toward Tallinn and Leningrad. In its path, 70 miles inside the Soviet border, lay the resort town of Liepaja, famous for its lime trees. Liepaja's garrison managed to survive for 7 days and won a kind of immortality. They lay where they fell, under the sky and the salt spray, for 3 years. With Liepaja in flames behind them, the Nazis forced their way towards Riga and Tallinn, main forward base of the Baltic Fleet in Estonia. On July 19th, Army Group North was ordered to prevent the Soviet naval forces from withdrawing from Tallinn to Leningrad. By August 8th, Tallinn had been surrounded and was under bombardment by heavy guns. On a single day, the Germans dropped over 600 shells into the harbor. Sailors from the fleet were the mainstay of the defense. Among them was Yevgeny Nikonov. He was wounded and captured. Seeking information, the Germans blinded him and then poured gasoline over him and made a torch of him. Nikonov was 19. The final attack opened on August 19th against a defense force